Gallery view. Okay.
or gallery, yeah.
Yeah, gallery is usually the one that has them. Everybody.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah. Okay. So this is our Mariemont Rules and Law meeting. Today is St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2:00. So our items are the recodification, and we have the estimate from American Legal who does our recodification. And then why don't we do that one first? I feel like that's super easy. We can just get right through. So it looks like they've capped the project at $11,000 plus whatever it costs to ship us the code books. We are going to take what we decided through the end of March, all of the new ordinances that we have voted on through the end of March. And then we're getting pamphlets, zoning pamphlets, which we always get, and then 25 sets of the code updates. Joni, what is that exactly? Are we getting 25 binders?
No. I said that we just need 5 full paper copies.
Oh, got it. It's down there. Okay.
No
What is
binder.
25 sets of the code updates?
I'm sorry?
What does it mean 25 sets of the code updates? That last sentence in the second paragraph.
25 sets.
of code updates. Yeah, what is that? Do you know?
The zoning, I don't know, I can ask her. I didn't
Okay.
notice it.
I'm assuming it's something we normally get. Otherwise, yeah. So anyway, we just need, what our job is to pretty much, I mean, I feel like council is all in agreement that we would like to have our code updated. It's really hard to look at things right now. And then, so our job is to vote to pass this up to council for approval for the money in order to do this. So my only additional question, Joni, is how did we work the online content?
How do we work? I'm
Like,
sorry.
is it going to be the same exact thing we have now where it's updating the available online content as well
Yes.
as?
Yes, because we pay for that every year. It says plus an additional cap of 1,000 for updating the folio/internet version of the code.
Okay, so they update, do they update it every year or we just pay? I didn't think they were
I
updating
think
it every year.
it's to keep the code online.
Current.
Okay, got it. Okay, so it's just to keep it hosted online.
Right.
Okay, so what we're voting on then is the $11,000 plus whatever shipping and handling is to mail us the pamphlets and the 5 binder copies that we're getting. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep. Who we have 5 full copies. So I know Joni, you have one, and Chief Hines has one. Who else has them?
Bill?
I do.
The mayor
you do?
wants one, the building department, the police department, Ed asked for a hard copy. And I think John wanted a hard copy.
Okay.
Okay, so they're internal. Okay. Marcy, are you okay with it?
You're on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. I know, I mean, how long has it been since we've recodified or whatever?
November 2015.
2015. So I guess the only concern I have is if we have, I know we just got this money that we're supposed to get from the federal government, which is fine. I guess at first I was concerned that maybe it's something we should postpone until we had a better grasp of our situation for this year. Only because, you know, $10,000 that could be or 11,000 that could be allocated somewhere else.
Well, I think we could double check with Tony, but I think he did budget for the
He did
renewal, I mean, to
I know he budgeted,
recodify
he
this
did.
year. The longer you do it, the more it's going to cost, the bigger the job is. And it really does make research harder.
Okay.
So,
Joni, if I remember right, you said really ideally we should do this every year, right? Is that that's the norm?
that would be my recommendation, is to do it every year. I mean,
And then
obviously it doesn't, the cost isn't as expensive. And then everybody has pretty much the current information up to date from a year,
Okay,
Yep.
you know, and then if something has happened in the past year, it's much easier to go back and look at 12 months worth of legislation than 7 years.
and if we had been doing it on a yearly basis, would it, I mean, does that cut the cost from like $11,000 to, is there economies?
Well, I would think that most of it would be, you know, how big the job is for them, you know, what type of legislation they need, you know, is it adding a new section? Is it just amending something? You know, how labor intensive it is for them, but we always get a quote before we do it.
Right,
And just saying that, you know, I think, Rob, we had talked about, or the finance committee had recommended that we do it every year, and we withheld doing it last year
Right.
Mhm.
because of COVID. So
Right.
the recommendation has already been made by council to do it every year, but we backed off of it because of last year.
okay. Well, I appreciate you clarifying that. You
Okay.
know, I'm new at this and COVID exactly hasn't helped the learning curve.
Yeah, and I can just add, it really is an arduous process to basically go through that stack of the updated stuff, you know, that's not currently in the code book, to try and find something, you know,
Right.
now that it's been this many years. I mean, Joni and I were looking for something just the other day. We probably spent, I don't know, 45 minutes, you know, going through the stack and trying to figure out, you know, what date did that happen on? Personally, I think we're a little past due on this one.
All right, well, thank you
Well,
for
yeah.
clarifying. I appreciate that. I
Yep.
just like to understand and feel confident about what I'm agreeing to.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Well, I
Then
was
again, yeah, to help keep the
elected
cost.
for-
What's that?
That's what I was elected for, so I feel like I should try.
So, again, as Joni said, I think going forward, we need to really be doing this on an annual basis then. I mean, it keeps the cost down and it keeps us all up to speed on what's going on out there. So I totally agree. And as she said, we actually recommended that. I think this would be good. This would be good to get us caught up, and then we just need to have the drumbeat keeping it up to date.
All right. Thank you. So, yes, I am.
Okay. Okay, so I'll get that report written and we'll get it up to council for Monday's meeting.
Okay.
And then this is completely up to you guys. Do you want to do as an emergency just so we don't have to have 3 readings? I mean, I realize it's not an emergency, but we've been waiting forever, so I'm completely fine either way. I hate
How
to
long does it take him to do the work?
a while.
I don't think we need to do an emergency. I think, you know, Ed could do the legislation and we could pass it with 3 readings. It's
Okay,
gonna take them, you know, several weeks to get the work just
Okay.
started and up to the point where we're gonna look it over before we're gonna be in a position to pay for it.
okay, that sounds fine. So no emergency.
And Joni, I'm assuming we'll just do this as resolution too, right? This doesn't need to be an ordinance.
Yeah, I would refer back to Ed.
Okay.
It's been 7 years since we did it, so I'd have to go back and look at what we
I
did.
don't
and if
remember what we
that
did
was
either.
right, then-
Yeah. But I think now with Ed, we've agreed, you know, based on the stuff from the Ohio State Auditor, that we do resolutions for contracts and for spending and things like that. We don't have to do ordinances for those things. But I agree with you. Let's double check with Ed.
Yeah,
But-
you know, when we pass the report, then just ask Ed to prepare the necessary legislation. We can confirm with him that it would be a resolution.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so the next item is the social media policy, which I emailed out to everybody, and my computer is completely frozen trying to open it. I don't know why. But yeah, now it's really frozen. How would you guys like to discuss this? I mean, do you want to go? When I read it, I was happy with what was in it. I think it could have saved us some problems on the back end. And I am in favor of having a social media policy. There's a greater question of a general lack of policies in terms of like this policy references, like if we had this one, we would have an HR policy in terms of like enforcing anything that if someone did something to get in trouble, we need an HR policy to allow us to kind of enforce it equitably. So anyway, I'm just going to throw that out there for discussion. Do you want to walk through it?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to walk through it. I think it would make sense for us to have this in place, to have something like this in place. So.
I am completely frozen trying to open it. I don't know if it's because I'm in the basement or what. Do you have it open, Rob?
Well, of course, I'm the old fashioned way. I just print it off, so.
I know I should have done that. That would have made sense.
Well, and so I don't know, again, I would just jump, if there's certain sections that people had comment, there's like, we have to, how it's gonna be administered by, there's some questions, there's some spots that got left to be filled in that
Right.
Jack sent. And then there's only one thing for me that I think we should add. Everything else looked good to me. So.
What do you think?
The one thing I would add is, okay, so this is on the third page under F. So this is village approved sites and users. Under F, it says village or department employees representing the village via social media outlets shall do the following. It has a list of things. Number 4 says not conduct political or religious activities or private business. This is where I think I would add a 5th one, just saying, not posting any false or misleading information concerning the village.
Okay. Okay.
So that was the only thing I would add to this. But it does, again, it raises an interesting question about who's going to administer. There's 2 spots where it has sort of a placeholder to put something in there.
Right.
Because it says so.
Wasn't it Allison who had said she was, I mean, I'm not hiring her right now, but like in case we would decide to have some particular person administer our sites as a whole on social media, wasn't she the person that had volunteered to do that potentially?
Well, is she doing the postings on the website now?
On the village
Well, like,
website.
Oh,
everybody kind of owns their own now.
Well, I think this would be helpful. So just to list it out. So we have the village website. The police has a Facebook page, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I think
and the fire department has a Facebook page.
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
they have websites too, or is it just a Facebook page?
They have tabs on our website. And then
Okay.
there's a Twitter account that's not it's inactive, like nobody's using it, but I know Eli said she has a password. The pool, I think
It has a Facebook.
Page.
they wanted to, yeah, okay. And then we have Next Door Mariemont that we have Joni, you do that one, right?
Either Allison or I do both the
Okay.
website or, yeah.
Okay. And then,
There's the South 80, which,
oh, right. And there's actually a Facebook page out there that Barb Policastro started when we did the 75th.
That's mine.
Oh, it is? Oh, I thought
Yeah,
Barb did it. Okay.
That's through MPF.
Oh, okay. For some reason, she was always posting, so I guess I thought it was hers. Okay.
That's a personal thing, and that's not village associated, and it doesn't say that it is. So
Okay, good. So then MPF is separate, obviously.
MPF has their own Facebook page, and I started that one for the 75th.
Okay.
And since I have to do the MPF social media, I sometimes post the same stuff on there because there's a little bit of overlap, but
Great.
I mean, it's never opinionated, but it's all just village going ons. And
Okay. Sounds good.
So the South 80 is their own site then, is that right? Did I hear?
Yes. It's a Facebook group.
Facebook, okay.
There's some other ones too, but I would have to go look at my stuff. I think that's the only governmental associated one that.
I guess my question is, how do you distinguish between something that's I mean, just because it says Village of Mariemont on it, do we have proprietary right over that?
So that's where it gets hairy. So, I mean,
That's
because the
exactly it.
South 80 is, created under the structure of, it's part of what Parks and Recreation, it's listed under that. It is then a part, like people are appointed to it by the mayor.
Well, I know that part, but I mean, it's basically these pages pop up as, one person
Mhm,
and there's a couple administrators. But
mhm.
I'm just saying, just because they say Village of Mariemont doesn't necessarily make them proprietary. I mean, or legally, are we entitled to that name? That's my question.
I don't
I mean,
know. I mean, if I were
if it's a
handling it, I would
private
probably ask them to
individual,
not do that if I found out about it.
if it's a private individual, like in the case of Mariemont 75,
Right.
and I'm not really using I'm using there's all these things out there on Instagram. There's hashtag Mariemont.
Yeah, no, that's just people tagging stuff. That's different.
Well, no, there's a whole account called hashtag Mariemont on Instagram.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know who owns that one.
I can't figure that out either. But so, there was some kerfuffle with the South 80 in the past because some, people were putting
Mhm.
personal opinions under the South 80
Mhm.
and without identifying who they were saying it. But I guess,
Well, the document under content management says, it does say village maintained and owns social websites or pages. So I
So-
guess that would be like you're saying, Marcy, you if you maintain one that's separate, that for the 75th, that's not village owned or maintained.
right.
So, I mean, we can't control what's in other people's websites. It's the ones that we
so
own.
you'd have to clarify that to say a village employee maintained. Because, somebody could put on a Facebook page that said Mariemont Police and Fire, but not be associated with that you can do that. You can create any kind of Facebook page you want.
Sure.
Yeah,
So
in
you
fact,
have
I
to
think there's
clarify.
really, isn't there any number of Mariemont Fire Department Facebook pages? There's more than one.
I think there's at least 2.
Yeah. Mhm. And I don't know who created them. I don't know anything about them.
Well, see, this is, again, I think this is good. What earlier when we were identifying what's the inventory of the sites that we own. So, because this policy, it lays out a couple things. One is expectations about employees and what they do, even in their personal spots. And then secondarily, this also lays out, here's for websites that are owned and maintained by Mariemont, here's what needs to be done on those websites.
Right.
So again, the first exercise is, what are the ones we own and maintain? And once we have those.
Do we even have that? Do we have an inventory?
Well, we were starting to
inventory.
right there. We were starting to say village website, police Facebook, fire department Facebook, but you're saying there could be 2 of those. There's just the swim pool. Is that just a page? They just want a page on the village website?
No, I think Jordan uses that, to post weather-related things, but, I don't, the village office doesn't have access to that.
Is it a Facebook page or is it a website or what is it? Do you
I think it's a Facebook page.
Or Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm making the list now that I am listening.
Well, not to
There's
interrupt, but
Mariemont Youth
what-
Football, there's,
Well,
Wasn't Jordan, was she taking reservations, pool reservations through the Facebook page or through the website?
I think
that was through the website, I
The
believe.
website, okay.
Mhm. It was.
and then we have the South 80 has a Facebook page too, right?
Mhm. Okay. I'm thinking there's one more hiding out there, but I'll look it up later. So, okay, next steps. So we have our inventory. I mean, are we in agreement that we'd like to at some point, maybe it may be premature to just launch it right now, but to have a policy that addresses social media? I mean, are we in agreement that this is a need?
I think there should be, yeah, I think we should have something like this.
Okay. Marcy?
Well, I could see needs that are greater than this. I mean, to my knowledge, I mean, there's only been, one questionable circumstance that was recent. I mean, so there's also, all kinds of personnel and HR related issues that would need to be addressed. For example, treatment of employees by, by other employees, et cetera. So I don't know that this is the absolute top priority of this, but I mean, apparently you've already reached out to Jack and spent the money to have him come up with this. Again, I just think in this under policy guidelines, village maintained or owned social media sites, that's just very hard to define. I mean, so, would somebody have to get approval to start a Mariemont Facebook fire page, for example?
Yes, I think, I mean, this is why it's so important.
Everything that's out there?
I mean,
and it's only maintained by the fire, I don't know.
Right. So like, I feel like it's extremely clear in that, village owned and maintained social media and websites I feel like that's very easy. It is or isn't maintained by, an employee of the village who's been tasked specifically with doing so. And that no one else outside of the village or outside of that role has the ability to administer that website or that Facebook page or whatever social media account it is. And I mean, we could talk to Jack more about it. In my opinion, it's a super bad idea for people to be out there with an account. Like, I wouldn't want somebody out there with an account and my name and picture on it who isn't me posting stuff that I might not agree with, right? So as an entity like a municipality, it's really important, I think, to, find and at least begin with requesting that somebody not be using the name of your municipality to do these things on social media without permission. Like, we had Mariemont.org for a long time and Mariemont.com, and it was very confusing to people.
So who grants that permission?
I mean, right now it's kind of the Wild West. Like, first of all, we have no policy.
That's what I'm asking. So what would be the recommendation?
I don't know. I mean, that's a Jack question, I think. That's a good question.
Oh, it says here, so again, the policy says, this new proposed policy would say that all village maintained and owned social websites should be approved by the village mayor.
Right.
Designee, which I'm fine with that. So,
but if there's some other person from across town who decides to start a website called Mariemont Fire Department,
right.
How do you deal with that? I don't know.
Right. So I think that's a good question for Jack. I totally agree with you there, that we need to ask him, how do we maintain integrity around the Mariemont name with what's posted out there? But I agree with you. The definition of what is maintained and owned should be the stuff that, again, Bill has given, or somebody in the mayor or his designee has given the approval to say, yes, you can have that, put the Mariemont name on it, that kind of stuff. So,
well, who kind of follows then what would get posted on it?
well,
So the policy discusses that there's a role who, like, we would define who it is, who owns and is the administrator of the sites or any given site. And that would be something that, would be part of their job description. They would be the person who has password access or is the administrator and is named. Joni brought up, I think Joni, it was you brought up a really good point, like, and Eli also, who, like, because you can take down posts and things, like, who maintains a record of this, because, it talks about in this policy that these are public records. I don't know, like, does somebody go in and save it every day or print it off every so often like that? I don't know how to execute that. So we'd have to look into how to do that or what the expectation is.
I was just going to suggest too, we could reach out to our liability insurance carrier and see if they have a policy in place that they could give, that they would have for new employees, that you could part of their employee package, that they would read and sign off, the basic standards, do's and don'ts of social media as an employee of the village.
Right. And that's what this policy would be also, like, be given to them and explain, this is these are part of the rules of the way things work in your job and you cannot violate them.
Okay. I was just saying they may have something generic that we can use to just fit ours. It was just another.
No, I think it's good. I think it'd be good to get that.
We could review that also and see if there's anything this one missed.
What about personal social media?
So that's addressed in here, which I like a lot.
Yeah, it does. I think it does a good job of laying it out. So,
Okay, there it is. All right, I'm sorry.
So what it doesn't talk anything about is if there's a violation of the policy by an employee, I guess it's up to the municipality or the employer what the penalty would be. And I know it lays out something pretty fluffy, like up to and including termination or something like that at one point. But, I think there needs to be policy around. We just don't have any HR policies. I guess that's a big issue.
do we, Joni? Do we have? I don't know. Do we have HR?
We have an employee handbook that probably could be updated, but there are things in there, regarding harassment, things like that. But it probably was done earlier than social media was to the degree it is today.
Okay, so that's actually great news. So we could, in the process of updating that, then we could add this and then figure out, I don't know, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, Meg, I would think you kind of have to have some kind of a process or a procedure in place to sanction somebody, if they posted something that they shouldn't have and did it, without permission or something like that. I think you'd have to have some kind of a multi-step procedure process to sanction that person, right? I mean,
like to A, verify it was even them, and B, then
what would the first step of that be if it's the first offense, or how egregious was it, kind of a thing.
Like if they just made a mistake and said something accidentally that was incorrect, that's a different thing than like doing something like filming yourself at a party being completely insane. So I think, and posting it on our website.
Do people do that?
Yeah.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, kids are so stupid.
It's a foreign land to me.
It's not always kids. That's the weird part. Yeah. So, okay. So we can work that out. I'm just going to put a note in here. Not that that's even part of this meeting, but the employee handbook, maybe we could get a copy of it and then.
And I could also ask Greg with Highland if they have a generic employee handbook that we could look at.
I think that's a
But
great.
I'm saying ours is probably 15 plus years old. So
yeah,
it probably.
I think that's a great idea, and that would be like a whole separate meeting topic. And I don't even know if it would be this committee or just done within your ranks with Bill, but that's a great idea to review it. And even then, so being on two boards, this one and another one, and being in the governance area for both of them, one of the boards has a book of the book, and it talks about and this is pretty normal. I mean, how often you have to review each policy, right? So certain ones have to be reviewed every single year. Other ones are just reviewed every 5 years, like an employee handbook would be every 3 to 5, I would assume. But we should probably come up with some sort of structure just because things slip off your radar when you're just doing your job every day. And you don't think to look at these global issues And then you get a new guy and you're like, oh, well, the employee handbook's really out of date, but here you go. It doesn't address half of the things you're going to be expected to do. So it would be a good idea for us to generally put something like that together and then put a schedule together for like how often we update it, or have an attorney look over it, make sure we didn't miss anything egregious or something like laws haven't changed.
Yeah, I reached out to Fairfax because of this social policy, and so Jenny Kaminer sent me their handbook, their employee handbook, and so it's like 33 pages long. So Joni, if you're interested, I'd be happy to forward it to you, because they updated on it, and last time it was updated 2019. She said they're going through updating it right now as well. So.
That's fine. I think I'll still reach out to,
Oh, yeah.
company and just,
Yeah, look at a couple of
and
them.
you've got a couple things to look at.
Yeah,
that's a
totally,
great idea.
yes.
And also, if they do have a generic social media policy, or if it's in that, if there is a larger employee handbook and it's in there. I mean, it's always good to look at a couple examples because it seems like people style things one way or the other and they can be really different. Okay, so I feel like I have several Jack questions. How do we maintain the integrity around our name? And what if someone outside of Mariemont begins an unauthorized site or page, or depending on what media? How do you handle that? And then how to maintain social media as a public record? Like, I just think we need to know the nuts and bolts of that. I've never considered it. And then in terms of insurance, Joni, you'll reach out to find out if they have a social media policy that we could look at and an employee handbook. And then how to address social media policy and infractions. Maybe that would be in the handbook, but that actually might be a question for them also, because I don't know that they would. But we could also, I think I know a couple people in HR, like Avia's in HR, so we could even talk to her about how that's handled in terms of verifying that the poster is really the poster and that, handling scaling infractions or whatever. Not that we have that many. And then separately and apart, we'll talk about a handbook update, but that's different. So.
Can you list also well, Joni, can you help us confirm the inventory? So we took a rough estimate of here's the things we know of. Can you reach out to the department heads and just sort of say, is there anything else besides these listed sites? Is there anything else that the village is really running currently?
Okay.
Okay. That sounds good. And then, I mean, this obviously wasn't going to be a one meeting topic. This is.
Does our maintenance department have a Facebook page? Does anybody know? I don't follow it if we do.
I don't either.
Mhm.
Look, I don't know.
They put postings up every so often on the website, regarding
Snow removal, leaf removal, that kind of thing.
yeah, tree stuff and.
Let's see. So there's a Murray Path group, but that's not really governmentally associated, although people are active who are council members and ARB members. I don't know how we would determine. I mean, but that's not it's not a group that's like a committee or a board under council or anything like that. So I would think that wouldn't qualify. But that's the only other one I can think of that we haven't talked about.
I don't know. That's kind of dicey because if this, for the sake of argument, Joe didn't like something that we decided as council and use that page as a platform, he is an employee of the village.
Well,
Yeah, he is an
Well,
employee.
I think that would fall under,
yeah.
you have a policy, everybody has to sign it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yes,
you
if
know,
he would be an employee at that point, regardless of where he posts, because they do talk about employees acting responsibly as a representative of the village when they're posting. Like, you don't have an expectation of privacy the way like somebody who's not
Right.
an employee would, you know. So I think he's covered there.
Hey Maggie, can you add to the list of, so along the same lines here, to the list of Jack questions?
Mhm.
How do you define a village maintained or owned media site?
That was my question. That was,
Right. But I think there's one thing about how do you control, to me, well, the way I heard Maggie ask the question was, how do you control the use of the name? But then how do you define, because like you said, there's been Mariemont.org and Mariemont.com. And so clearly we don't control .com, right? And that's the one that we don't control. So, so there's a question about what do you do in those cases, but then separately, what again is the definition of a village maintained and owned media?
Okay.
So we can make sure we're clear on that.
Okay.
I mean, you're saying that's a Jack question, right, Rob?
Yep. I'll write all these out to Jack. I'll copy everybody when I send them. So if I forget something, you can.
Because you know, just as an aside, I mean, what Rob just said there, I guess it's Mariemont.com, I guess. I mean, that's Dick Wendell's site, right? He's had that for years, Dr. Wendell. I think he lives out in Terrace Park now.
Yep.
But I think he does still maintain that site, and
I think he offered to turn it over to us, didn't he, at some point?
I don't know.
I heard that, but I don't know if that's true or not.
But I'm saying he is an individual who is
Right.
using Mariemont.com and sort of posting under the guise that it's.
Oh, you know what? It's totally different now. Because when he lived here, or at least years ago,
Mhm.
I don't know if he lived here then, it really did. It was more of a blog site. And right now it is called, like, if you go, I just went to it and it says the Mariemont Village Connection, including Terrace Park, Fairfax, and Columbia Township. And it's actually really cool now. It's got like links to all these different organizations and all these neighborhoods, along with dining, lodging, shopping, parks. And then he does have a blog that he still runs. So it's clearly not specific to Mariemont. Now, it does look like it's official.
It may not be specific now because it's evolved into something other than it originally was. And my
But
hope
it
would
did
be,
used to be.
In the beginning, it was almost passing itself off as an official site. And I think Rob was trying to make this point, I guess. I mean, we need a way, what power do we have over someone who basically would do this to us?
Right. So that's my question to Jack. Yeah.
yeah, or to kind of take that a step further, can you trademark the phrase Village of Mariemont so that it can only be, some sort of a patent trademark? Those aren't the right terms, but
It'd be copyrighted, I think.
I don't know exactly with social media. I don't know that that's law that's been defined.
Okay. I will add that in there.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because if it was something as simple as, you can't use Village of Mariemont in your title of your page unless, you had approval or something like that.
Yeah.
And then if something pops out, we just, notify somebody and say, hey, but by the way, did you know? I don't know if that's.
And they're bound to take it right down.
Yeah, that happens every time.
Yeah.
Funny story. So when I first started that Mariemont 75, of course, I was not social media maven that I am today. And I was very new to MPF. And I just accidentally, without thinking about it, spelled Emory, the EMORY. And then I invited all my friends to like it. And then somebody immediately posted on the page, you spelled Emory wrong.
Thanks for telling me in public.
Yeah. And not even in a nice way. So.
Right. Like you're an idiot. Yeah. Those are always fun.
Except I wasn't embarrassed enough.
That's funny.
And still every once in a while I'm typing something, I'll do it. I'll default to that because it's, same with Mariemont Theater. They spell it R-E, most people spell it E-R. But I guess if that's my worst embarrassment on social media, then it's probably a good thing.
So Maggie, are we done? Is that good? Is that
I
it?
think we're done. Yeah. I mean, that's all I have. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and write Jack all of our questions. I'm just going to kind of put, I think in the report along with the recodification, I'm just going to say we began to discuss this issue and reviewed one example of a policy, and we will continue to discuss it and come up with something. Is that fine with everybody?
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Alrighty. Well, thank you everyone for meeting.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.
You guys.